Matt Bernie, you're taking a look at the Stronach 5 for this upcoming Friday, October the 5th. This is the second week that this wager has been offered. For those of you unfamiliar with the Stronach 5, it's a pick 5 sequence. Goes all across the Stronach family of racing tracks. 12% takeout, $1 base bet. If you didn't play it last week, there were 14 winners. Came back just under $9,900, so certainly something that you're going to want to get involved with. The first race of this Stronach 5 sequence for this upcoming week is the third at Santa Anita, and very similar to the way that I did things last week, just going to give you some horses. Consider them, don't consider them, whatever it may be. Just trying to come here and offer a little bit of advice and a little bit of help. I thought this first race, the third leg at Santa Anita, the third race at Santa Anita, excuse me, was a little bit difficult to discern the horses that have run. None of them really done a heck of a lot, and you got a couple interesting first-time starters. I'm going to go with the 1, the 5, the 7, and the 9. The 1 is Morning Press. Morning Press took some significant money down at Del Mar in her career debut, going much shorter. For what it's worth, this filly, she is a full to chief of staff who was 3 for 17 going a route of ground on dirt, so maybe this stretch out in distance will be beneficial. She didn't get out of the gate all that well down at Del Mar. With a more alert beginning, breaking down to the inside, and we know how well speed does going 2 turns out at Santa Anita, perhaps Morning Press can get forward and take advantage. The number 5 is Spicy Curry. Spicy Curry goes out for Vladimir Serin, Edwin Maldonado. This one is also a sibling to horses that have done well going longer, a sibling to Swissarella as well as Drummer Don. They both won going a route of ground on dirt. This filly will stretch out from 5.5 to 8 furlongs. She's at least shown a little bit of early foot in these most recent starts. Going shorter, it leads me to believe she can be forwardly placed. And again, I think you have to be out there if you really want to succeed out at Santa Anita. You got to be more forward as opposed to coming from further off of it. The 7 is a first-time starter for Ryan Hansen. That's American Falls. She's by Curlin. They only paid $42,000 for her, so clearly this is just sort of a wash situation. We'll see if she gets taken out of here. I don't think the connections would be too disappointed, but at the same time, she probably fits in here. She's also a half to a stakes-placed runner out in Japan, so distance, I think, should be this one's friend, and maybe if some of these other girls find the 2 turns sort of too daunting or too much, maybe American Falls works out a good trip. I'll also use the outside run of the 9, Queen of the Track, taking a big drop in class for Jeff Bondi, going from the maiden special weight ranks down to the maiden 40. I think there's a scenario where she is the one that actually clears off to the front because that outside draw, it's a short run into the first turn. You don't want to get hung too wide. I think if you're Fuentes, the rider, you just have to send hard and try to clear over and maybe take this field as far as you can. 4 deep for me in the first leg, the opening leg of this week's Stronach 5. The second leg is the 8th race at Gulfstream Park West. 5 furlongs on the turf course. These are maiden $16,000 claimers. I'm going to use 3 horses in here, but realistically, I wouldn't have a major issue going, and I know it's a first-time starter, and that's always a dangerous sort of proposition, but the number 2 Shall Return. I think this horse is interesting. The Kentharos babies, I always like them, particularly going short on turf. This one's also a sibling to 2 turf winners, but the other 2 horses that I would consider, the 3 Miss Sassy's Back. Miss Sassy's Back is by Treasure Beach. Treasure Beach himself was a turf horse. His progeny seemed to be excelling on the turf. This one is also a sibling to a gelding that is 3 for 19 on turf as well. The career debut showed a little bit of early foot, took a little bit of money in there, was bet down to 2 to 1. We'll find out if the turf is actually this one's friend and what she actually wants to do. And the other one that I would consider is the number 10 horse, Mancora. Mancora is by Icebox. Icebox, we think of him, you remember back to that Derby run that he had at 1.25 miles, and you think long distance is really what he wants. His turf runners are actually quite well. First-time turf runners, they're 9 for 74, so that's a decent strike rate. And based on what this one has done on the main track so far, leaves a little bit to be desired. The outside post is no bargain, going 5/8, but perhaps getting to the turf will be this one's friend. 2, 3, and 10 for me in the 8th race at Gulfstream West. That's the second leg of this week's Stronach 5. We move on to the third leg. We go to Laurel Park for race number 9. This is a non-winners of 2 other than going a mile on the turf. 3 horses in particular, but again, this would be an instance where I can understand people that favor certain horses a little bit more than others based on certain things. The 1, the 3, and the 9. The 1 is Baltic Art. This is an interesting horse from Mike Trombetta. Owns the highest last out buyer along with the other 2 horses that I'm using. The 88 buyer makes this horse fit in here very well. The concern is coming off of such a long layoff. What are you going to get? The good news is Trombetta strikes at about a 21% rate with these horses coming off of 180 or greater layoffs. And also you can't help but notice that overall record at Laurel Park on the turf, 2 for 3 lifetime, all 3 times in the exacta. I want a little bit of the 1 Baltic Art. The number 3 in here is Astounding for Jason Service coming in from Saratoga. That was in an open 40 group. Now we drop to, I shouldn't say drop. It's one of those difficult things where at face value, you're going to be going up in class, but realistically, the N2X level at Laurel is probably pretty darn close to the Open 40 level claiming-wise up at Saratoga. 88 buyer in the most recent start. Ran into a couple of decent horses. If you believe that this horse can get back to that run from Monmouth 2 starts back in early May, fits in here very, very well. Makes a lot of sense. And I'll also use the number 9 horse in here, Dream Doctor. Dream Doctor, again, co-highest last out buyer in the field with an 88. Highest last out raw time form US rating with a 111. The concern here is that came over a yielding surface, and that is pretty clearly the fastest race that this horse has run to date. You have to wonder if that given the ground really moved him up, and is he quite as effective on firm going? We'll find out what we get weather-wise, and we'll find out if he can actually continue on with that good form. So 1, 3, and 9 for me. In the third leg of this Stronach 5, that is the 9th race at Laurel. The 10th race at Laurel is the 4th leg of this sequence. And this would be the spot where if I decide to play this, I'm going to get a little bit, I don't want to say bold, but I'm going to take a shot here. I'm going to single the inside runner. This is 5.5 furlongs on the turf course. Non-winners the 2 other than the 1, Sweet Yar and Dira. This is a horse that, from a speed figure standpoint, is not far off. You're looking at probably a mid-70 that it's going to take to win a race like this. Has never raced at Laurel Park in the past. But from a Timeform US standpoint, 2 of the 3 most recent runs, they're all very, very fast and arguably make this horse the horse to beat. Now, the concern there becomes those races both came at Monmouth Park, and perhaps this horse has an affinity for the Monmouth turf. That's something that you're going to have to wait and see. But I like the fact that this one has some tactical ability, can be forwardly placed, can sit off of a target. I know we're going from the N1X level to the N2, and that's never an easy jump, but you get Daniel Centeno aboard. The distance shouldn't be an issue for this horse. 10-1 on the morning line. If I had to take a stand and make a play, you know what? I want to look for a little bit of a separator, perhaps the inside runner, the number 1 in the 10th race at Laurel, the 4th leg of the Stronach 5. That would be where I would put most of my eggs in that basket. And hopefully we're alive and we get to the payoff leg. We go back out to the West Coast, Santa Anita, race number 5. It's the 5th leg of the Stronach 5. I would go 3 deep in this maiden $32,000 claimer, going a mile on the turf. But again, this could be an instance very easily where people single the number 3 Simple Man. Simple Man is just in great form at this point. This is a horse that I understand he hasn't won a race in almost a calendar year. But the way that he's running from a speed figure standpoint, you have to look at him and say, he makes all the sense in the world. Highest last out buyer in the field with a 90. Highest last out raw time form US rating in the field with a 113. Ran into a good horse in Ohio most recently. Was claimed 2 starts back from the Sadler barn. And he actually improved his speed figure. So there's a real scenario, I think, where Simple Man, many people will look at him and say he's just way the horse to beat. But I think there's a couple other interesting runners, and they both happen to come out of that same race. I think the 4 Secreto Primero is interesting, mainly because John Martin does very good work, especially in Northern California. Brought this one down to Southern California, and Del Mar ran just fine. Got the job done in that most recent start. 2 starts back, though. Finished a length and a half behind Simple Man, and I think some people will look at that and say, oh, well, maybe he's not as good as Simple Man. This horse now is off of the Bob Hess Jr. claim, and I think you're going to get a forward move. Tyler Bays takes them out. I think Secreto Primero is a little bit interesting. Perhaps the running style will compromise him a little bit, but I think he fits in here and deserves a little bit of a look anyway. And the other horse that I want to consider is the number 9. Excuse me, the number 8, Rapid Red. Rapid Red is off of the claim out of the Keith DeSormo barn. First time going out for Doug O'Neill. Blinkers go on. Take a look. This horse, for the most part, was in sort of the Midwest region on the turf and occasionally would run in Kentucky on the grass. There's a real scenario, I think. We talk about east going west. This horse only tried that one race out there at Del Mar, over the summer meeting and came on with a little bit of a belated run. I think probably a combination of needing one off the layoff, and now you move over to O'Neill's barn, who's off to a good start to the Santa Anita Fall meeting. I think Rapid Red is interesting if you're looking for a longer price in a race like this to include, but I can understand, again, anyone that looks at Simple Man and says he's just the horse to beat in the 5th race at Santa Anita happens to be the payoff leg of this week's Stronach 5. Again, the Stronach 5, it's going to be on Friday, October the 5th. You've got 5 races from all across the Stronach family of racing tracks. It's a 12% takeout, $1 base bet play that you definitely want to be getting involved with. Scheduled post time for leg A, the first leg of this Stronach 5 sequence. It is the 3rd race out at Santa Anita on Friday afternoon. Scheduled post time right around 5 o'clock. Good luck.